If you find yourself overwhelmed, frozen, stuck, and unable to take action because of overthinking and rumination, this video is for you. Now, why should you listen to this video? Maybe because you need a little bit of help and maybe a little bit of support. If that is where you are right now, you're in the right place, because I am someone who has struggled with chronic anxiety pretty much all their lives. And in the past 5 years, I have turned it around for me. And I'm at a place now where anxiety doesn't limit any aspect of my life at all anymore. This channel is an attempt to share the tools and techniques and practices I have experimented with, learned along the way, in the hope that someone out there might benefit from it. So let's first talk a little bit as to how rumination and overthinking causes this sense of being stuck from a physiological stand. As we think more, the nervous system gets more and more sensitized, and what happens is the brain releases a lot of stress hormones like adrenaline and cortisol. For a lot of people who struggle with anxiety, including me, it is particularly worse in the morning because that's when the body releases a lot of cortisol and you are sensitive. And what happens is now the body feels very uncomfortable. And because it feels very uncomfortable, the mind jumps in with a set of stories to justify as to why it feels so difficult in the body. And that justification, that storyline, is overthinking and rumination. And also your brain's threat detection system is activated, which is amygdala, this little nut-shaped part in the brain, and that requires you to scan for potential danger. And that in turn freezes you. Now that said, the real question is, what are we going to do about it? So I had to go through radical understanding, which is we essentially can't solve the problem with our minds. Because what the mind does is it thinks, and that thinking, contrary to popular belief, is often automatic. So you plant an idea and the thoughts kind of follow themselves. Now the problem with that is when your threat response is activated, it's very hard to see the distortions in your thinking. For example, maybe you are doing black and white thinking, right? Like, I received this rejection from this one company on my job search, and your mind immediately concludes that I'm never going to get a job. It's very hard to recognize this sort of distortions when your system is running on adrenaline and cortisol and your nervous system is hijacked and your threat response is activated. And if we try to solve the problem with our minds, we might try to force the mind to think along other lines of thought, but that doesn't work because your biology is going to kick in. And it's a very powerful force. In this time and age, because we are so used to intellectualizing and we are flooded with content, we believe, or at least I did, that we can solve all of our problems with intellectualizing. So essentially it goes like this: the better I understand my problem, the easier it will be to solve it. But unfortunately, neurobiology doesn't quite support this. That's not how the human animals, or any animals for that matter, work. That said, this was the key for me. So I realized that if I try to solve the problem through thinking, it's just going to get worse because my mind is going to take me out of any movement, any action that I'm about to take. So that was the first part, on having that realization and letting it sit in. Because as you're about to do it, the mind's going to jump back in with its narratives, and it'll be difficult. It's not going to be easy. It will be difficult to move in the face of that. And this is where a skill comes into play, a skill that I have learned from this therapy modality called acceptance and commitment therapy. So the idea essentially is your mind can keep running a story, but it doesn't have to dictate your action. I learned about it from this phenomenal book called ACT Made Simple by Russ Harris. A great book. I absolutely recommend you check it out. So essentially, you recognize that even though your mind comes up with these stories to keep you locked in place or in a state of overwhelm, you still have control over your body. For example, if my mind keeps telling me that I look like an idiot as I'm speaking to the camera, or whatever strong voice it comes up with, I can still think of you who is on the other side watching and what's gonna bring value to you, and then just talk. But that happens at a little bit of a later stage in the process. What we can do if we get caught up very easily in the mind story is we can regain control on a physical level. Like, for example, no matter how much anxiety I'm having, unless I'm disabled, I can probably wiggle my fingers and then wiggle my toes and then do 10 jumping jacks. Now, see, whenever you think of doing that, you will notice another set of thoughts come in. Maybe you're gonna look weird, or maybe I don't know how this is gonna help in the long term. And these are more tricks, not tricks, these are just the things that the minds do to keep you stuck in place. And what we do in ACT is we interrupt that loop and do it anyway. So let's do those 10 jumping jacks or the wiggling or whatever exercise our coach or our therapist gave us and see how we create a little opening. And oftentimes what happens is the thoughts loosen their hold a little bit. You experience some sense of relief and distance because energy moves through the body. So with overthinking and being frozen and being stuck, a lot of the energy is stuck in your head area, and as we move, energy circulates through the body. And this is gonna be a series of videos where I talk about techniques that I have learned from ACTs, so more to come in the future in those videos. But to sum it all up, whenever you're stuck in a cycle of rumination and anxiety and overthinking, your body releases adrenaline and cortisol, which in turn accentuates that thinking, and it becomes this feedback loop. Now, one way we can interrupt that whole thing is by doing something physical, literally with our bodies, like wiggling our hands, feeling the lower part of the body, or doing jumping jacks or push-ups. And in the process, we recognize that our behavior does not have to be dictated by our thoughts and emotions. This is the great enlightenment. And as you keep doing this technique again and again, the enlightenment is gonna set in, and before you know it, you are gonna be a whole new person. With all of that said, I am gonna end the video here. Hopefully you found this helpful. If you did, make sure to like and subscribe, because like I said, this is gonna be a series of videos where I'm gonna be sharing more techniques from ACT, CBT, Zen, which is something that I practice as well, and it has helped me with a lot of things. So stay tuned for all of that. It was great talking to you. Have a great rest of your day out there.